We're on the last Devo in the series, and it's a final assessment of our days of discontent. So last time we talked about contentment being connected to wealth, because that's the world in which we lived. We reminded ourselves of the falsehood of the definition of contentment and having much. So now we're reading what we can do in order to stir our pot of contentment, ridding everything out of it that's discontentment. First of all, we're to keep on loving one another as brothers and sisters, and don't forget to be hospitable to strangers, because they could be angels. We're to remember those in prison as if we're there with them, and those who are suffering. We're to honor marriage and keep ourselves pure. We're to stay away from the love of money and be content. So how is this possible when we have eyes and desires and we see what we want? All of this takes so much work. Well, this is what we're told to remember, and it's that He will never leave us or forsake us. That knowledge, that truth, the settling of the mind and soul is the pure definition of contentment, because we can do all things through Christ, the one who's always with us. Riches and wealth come and go, but He stays. And then there's a confident statement that we're to boldly make, and it's, the Lord is my helper, and I will not be afraid. Fear drives us to discontent, which then drives us to seek out contentment through other avenues. Here's some more directives. We're not to be carried away by strange teachings. We're to find strength in His grace, not riches. This world in which we live is temporary. It's not even our home. And we're to continually offer a sacrifice of praise to Jesus. We're to do good and share with others for the pure fact of obeying God and pleasing Him. I've said this before, but imagine a parent or child relationship where the child only obeys so that he can get more candy or toys, but never because he loves his father and wants a relationship. That kind of child grows up to be a brat. And finally, we're to pray for our leaders, those that teach us. We're to make their job a joy and not a burden. We're to pray for them to live honorably. And then guess what? Peace and contentment as the great shepherd leads is ours. We are then equipped with every good thing for doing His will, so that He can work in us everything that's pleasing to Him. Take assessment of your contentment meter. What's causing you angst, and what's driving you to act and perform and even give and serve? Is it so that you become higher and more noticed and more loved? What kind of arguments and battles do we find ourselves in? Is it due to feeling threatened because of what we don't have, like Jacob and Esau? Are we living in fear because we've forgotten the faithfulness of God and failed to recall it to our children and their children? Remember, like the psalmist, that we can quiet ourselves and calm ourselves and remember and be content. What have we been eating? Only hitting a few hunger receptors instead of eating to satisfy? Are we hungry for the wrong things? Have we fallen into envy and feeling entitled to something from God that we're not getting? Are we anxious, and has that anxiety snuffed out joy? Have our thoughts descended into the pit? I know that I personally have to assess my contentment from time to time, because we go and come in a world that swims in discontent. So it would make sense that when we come to our homes at night, that we'd be covered in the dust that falls because of the air we breathe. However, just like we take a nightly bath to wash away the grime of the day, it's a good thing to do the same with our heart, mind, and soul, to wipe away the discontent. It's not something we just pray for and God wipes it away for us. Sins are erased in that manner. But these days of discontent, we have choices to make, attitudes to notice, souls to quiet, and truths to grab hold of every day. And that in itself can make us tired. But remember, He's with us. He never leaves us. He enables us to do all things, and that includes living contentedly. It might be a good and healthy practice to stop and evaluate at the end of each week to see how we did, much like we evaluate teachers at the end of a session. How did our week go in retrospect, with attitudes and actions and feeling contented? We can look back to see where the discontentment crept in and take note and walk toward contentment. If we only do this once a year, then we're going to suffer a lot of discontent with no reason. Do it often. Days of discontent, do they rule our weeks and months and years? I know I'm going to sit up and take note more often, to please God by praising Him and loving Him and others, to give thanks for my food and clothing, for what I have today, because contentment coupled with loving Him is indeed great gain.